Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. Whether you're joining from across the climate, environment, or broader purpose-driven space, we really appreciate you being here. I just want to begin by acknowledging that there is a lot going on in the world at the moment. And so we are keen to spend this next 45 minutes with you and all have some space and hopefully a couple of laughs and walk away from the session with some tools that you can use to navigate moving forward. I would like to acknowledge country. I'm joining from Meanjin on the lands of the Yagara and Turrbal people. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. If you're joining us from elsewhere across the country, I invite you to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that you are on. And if you would like to share your country in the chat, that would be also very welcome. I just want to give a quick note on how this session is going to work today. This is a space that touches on real experiences of pressure, care, and sometimes challenge. So you're invited to engage with whatever feels right for you. You can listen, reflect, take notes, or contribute to the chat. Later, we'll move into small group discussions, but there is no expectation to share anything personal if you don't want to. Take what is useful and leave what is not. The flow for today's session is that I'll start with a short introduction and share how we at Climate Courage for Teams think about leadership in this context. Then we'll move into an 8-minute breakout before Emily takes us through the psychological path for self-leadership. We'll finish by coming back together and to close out with some actions and next steps. So really looking forward to leading you all through that today. So just to start, we're really curious about what brought you here today. So if you wouldn't mind adding into the chat just a little note about what brought you here and maybe also what kind of challenges you're facing. So I'll begin by just giving you all a brief overview of Climate Courage for Teams. So Emily and I first met in 2024 through the Women's Environmental Leadership Australia program, or WELA. A quick shout out to anyone here. I can see at least one other person from WELA, maybe two other people from WELA here on the line. Through the program, we met some incredible women working across environment-facing organisations, many of whom were experiencing similar pressures and emotional strain. So seeing this and recognising our combined skills, we felt a strong desire to act. We decided to join forces and create Climate Courage for Teams, a program designed to support people caring for the planet in ways they deserve. And by way of background, I'm currently the operations manager for the Next Economy, which works across all economic sectors to accelerate the transition to climate safe, regenerative and socially just Australian economy. I'm also the former ops manager of a medium-sized environmental not-for-profit. I guess the point of this is that I care about systems and really nerd out on how organisational structure and team processes can be optimised to serve the mission. It's fair to say that I understand the importance of working with leadership and teams to deliver on the bottom line. Having come from a health and design background in my previous career, I was surprised when I transitioned into the not-for-profit space to see that many passionate, values-driven people doing deeply meaningful work were quietly and deeply exhausted and burnt out, not just from a busy week, but from the intense emotional weight, urgency, and responsibility of the work. I understood that many of the answers needed from an operations level, but it wasn't until I met with Emily and started working together that we really unpicked the sort of whole picture. That's where my beautiful friend Emily Toner comes in. So Emily is a clinical psychologist, wellbeing consultant and speaker working at the intersection of behavioural science and regenerative psychology. She has spent the past decade designing wellbeing programs for global giants like Deloitte, ANZ and Seek, and creating organisational-wide psychological interventions that stand out for being practical, tool-focused and evidence-based. Now she's focused on helping share these tools with people on a bigger mission, people working in the for-purpose sector and social justice spaces. So at Climate Courage for Teams, we are experts in the intersection of psychological well-being and organisational culture, particularly in high-pressure, purpose-driven environments. We work with environment-facing organisations, including NGOs, councils, sustainability teams, and purpose-driven businesses to achieve sustained impact through resilient, connected, and well-supported people. This work is personal because we have seen firsthand how burnout, compassion fatigue, and climate grief affect teams. These challenges are often linked to psychosocial hazards, such as high demands, limited resources, and emotional strain shaped by leadership practices and team culture. If we want to sustain impact for the planet, we need to sustain the people doing the work. So courage in this space is not just about pushing through. It's about how we take care of ourselves and each other along the way. With that, I will hand over to Emily, who is going to guide us through a short mindful check-in.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Cass. Some people floating on in still, so lovely to see you if you've just joined us. We'd love to just take a moment to stop in a really busy day, acknowledging that you're here for the next 45 minutes and there's actually nothing we really need to do, nothing to be achieved. Am I loud enough? Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Thanks, Tanya. And so all I'm going to invite us to do for the next minute or two is just to pause, just take a moment to notice where you're sitting in space, notice the space around you, the room around you, maybe if there's any people around you. And I just invite us to, you don't actually have to close down your eyes, you're welcome to if it helps, but just take a moment to really try and switch on your senses. So allowing yourself to fall awake and come to your senses. And right now, seeing if you can notice the sounds around you. Maybe the furthest sound you can detect. It's starting to rain here where I am. And just acknowledging that you can't sense and think at the same time, which is quite convenient. So if you're wanting to take a moment just to pause in the day, coming to your senses is one of the quickest ways that we can arrive and reconnect with ourselves. So how are you feeling? Maybe just see if you can notice the body, the breath. Sometimes just asking the question, how am I feeling, is enough to reset. And to reconnect. So for the next 40 or so minutes, there's nowhere you need to go. There's nothing you have to do, hopefully. This time is just to let go, be here, to connect with like-minded, like-hearted people, maybe to learn some tools and strategies along the way, but allowing ourselves to enjoy being here in community. With people that you have probably never met before. But who you all share, we all share the same mission. So taking as long as you need to just open up the eyes. See if you can maintain a connection with your breath while your eyes open. And see if you can maintain a connection with your breath and body while we're here in this session today. Thanks, Cass.
Oh, that was so good, Em. Thank you. It's just lovely to just take that moment to pause in the day, and when you're encouraged to do it, it makes it so much easier. I just want to take a few minutes to explore what leadership really means in this context, and how small intentional habits can make a real difference for teams and for well-being. So leadership is often framed around outputs, targets, and results. It can also be seen as the strong individual who steps forward and carries the load and drives change through their energy and effort. While there is absolutely value to that, leadership is much more than one person out in front. At Climate Courage for Teams, leadership is about creating the conditions for everyone to thrive. So we do this through conscious connection, collaboration, shared responsibility, and creating space for strengths to grow in ourselves and in others. Leadership comes in many forms and from many places. It might be someone in the community creating new ways to protect local ecosystems, a team member supporting colleagues, or an organizational leader advocating for sustainable practices. To create a safe and sustainable future, we need all types of leadership and leaders, including people who are influencing their communities, teams, and organizations in ways that are meaningful and aligned with their values. Leadership in this context is about daily choices, behaviors, and culture. It's about embedding small intentional habits that shift energy, build trust, and strengthen engagement across the team. Leadership that's sustainable, shared, and allows everyone to thrive while doing meaningful work. At its core, leadership is about caring for ourselves and caring for others. When we model behavior that supports well-being, rest, connection, and boundaries, we give permission to others to do the same. We are social creatures, and we take our cues from each other. When leaders show that it's okay to pause, to set limits, and to care for themselves, it signals to the team that these behaviours are valued and safe. Caring for our planet is not separate for caring for ourselves. Supporting our own well-being and the well-being of our teams strengthens the systems we are trying to protect. Leadership is about alignment, making sure the way we work reflects what we are working towards. Leadership is also about authenticity and vulnerability. So I'm going to share a bit of my story with you. So in my previous role, which was my first experience working in the environment movement, I was exposed to pressures of work in a way I hadn't experienced before. So the team was incredibly passionate, but the pace, limited resourcing, and emotional weight was intense. Even though I had worked in previous roles before, I had found myself burning out in ways I had never experienced, completely uncharted territory. So it looked like me crying in a couple of meetings with my manager, feeling completely overwhelmed, feeling increasingly cynical, and experiencing sadness and anxiety every Sunday before going back to work on Monday. I felt out of alignment with my personal values, disconnected, and my capacity was diminished. Obviously, this doesn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen overnight for me. Over a few years, I thought I could manage everything by consistently working extended hours and skipping breaks. I believe the solution was simply to work harder and to optimize my workload and be more efficient. But the more I got done, the more work arrived. Eventually, I reached a point where I didn't feel like I could rely on other people to cover my work if I took leave, because everyone was so stretched and feeling overwhelmed. I kind of felt trapped in a cycle where doing more didn't create space or relief. And it was the precedent that I'd sort of set up until this point, and I felt trapped in that cycle. So I'm just now going to hand over to Emily, because she is keen to take us into breakout rooms, and she's just going to talk us through what the questions are and what we'd like to discuss. So, Em.
Thanks, Cass. Thanks for sharing. Look, I think your experience is, I can see lots of nodding. I can see some nodding anyway. And I think that working, I'm new to this space as well. Only in the last 4 or 5 years have I really been exploring the environmental movement. And I've been quite surprised by the extreme challenges faced by by people working in this space. So in the breakout, I'm really keen for us to connect for a decent period of time. We'll probably give you about 7 minutes. This is a chance to, these are not, this is all confidential. Anything said today is confidential. And what I'd like to know is, what are the extra challenges or hurdles people in your sector, in the environment climate movement face? Even a more personal question, does caring deeply ever feel like a bit of an Achilles heel sometimes? Often it's the people that care the most who kind of experience the most suffering. I've noticed that, I can relate to that. So these, and Cass has just popped some questions, these questions in the chat for you. So what are the extra challenges that you think you face that the people in the cushy 9-to-5 corporate job may not be dealing with? What does caring deeply have? Obviously it has its real benefits. Does it also have some challenges? And actually, if you get around to it, you might not have time, but if you get around to it, we're talking about leadership today. So what are some examples of good leadership that you've seen at work, and why? How does that sound? I think it's important. I'm going to take us through a very quick, what would you call it? Rapid download onto a psychological case for why we need to focus on our inner world in order to create outer impact. And it's so even more important it's particularly important in this setting. And I guess what Cass and I really want to get across, and why we're talking about these contextual factors, is that overwhelm in this setting is not a personal failing in any way whatsoever. And we know that, and we've seen it firsthand, that systemic issues, pressures, funding pressures, lack of resources, I've never seen anything like it. Work coming from a corporate space into the nonprofit space, seeing that, one person is the HR manager, the operations manager, the blah, blah, you're doing literally everything. And so these systemic issues are really challenging in this space. And so is the deep care. But what we also need to, I guess knowledge is power. So what I'd love to do is take you through a little bit more of the psychology behind why I'd like to suggest that we need to care about our well-being more than anyone in order to create, to take action on our mission. So what I like to do is, Cass, feel free to get onto our, yes, thank you. So this is stress. Welcome. We've all met stress. So going back to the previous slide, sorry, Cass. So stress literally contracts us. And this is what happens when we're under threat, when you're feeling this pressure, when you're feeling overwhelmed. Literally our nervous system is contracting. So our blood vessels constrict to send blood to our arms and to our feet so we can run. Very clever, right? Our vision narrows, literally. We become narrow-minded, narrow-focused. And when we're in this state chronically, which many of us are, we're leading, we're making decisions, we're holding teams, navigating complexity with a brain that's actually in this fight or flight state. So this is a challenge. This is a real challenge. And stress doesn't just contract our bodies and our thinking, it actually disconnects us. And this is the part that I care a lot about. When we are under stress, anxiety is basically just being caught up inside of our mind and disconnected from our body and from the world around us. And leaders in chronic stress often can't tell if you ask them if they were hungry, if they're tired, if they're in pain, because you kind of just learnt to override your needs. And in fact, that's kind of what the implicit message is in this culture, is that the cause matters more than I do. And I really think that's concerning, and we need to flip that switch that around. So at the far end of disconnection, it looks like disassociation, which is in psychology a psychology term, but for many of us it can feel like what Cass was describing earlier, becoming cynical, losing faith in the mission, disconnecting us from our values. I see this all the time. I see a lot of people who are working in the climate space who are actually just a bit depressed, burnt out, and they've lost hope in the mission. and they've lost hope in what can be done. Now, I also know that, things are pretty dire, and I totally get it. But I do think that our psychology impacts our perspective of what is possible in the future. So definitely having a mind that's in a contracted state is going to change how we think about what is possible in the future. And I'm not saying it's all happy roses, not at all. So stress also isolates us. When we're in a depressive episode, our nervous system moves into shutdown. So just back to the previous slide, Cass. Sorry, love. So it isolates us. And as you might have experienced when you're feeling sad, when you're feeling burnt out, that you tend to want to pull away from contact with people. This is the very thing that regulates us as well. This is why when you're working with someone who's depressed, the very first thing you do as a psychologist is to help reconnect them with social support. It's a fundamental pillar for well-being. So we're not built for isolation. The Ubuntu principle I've put here, the philosophy, Zulu and Xhosa African cultures, I believe it's from, captures this perfectly, which says, I am because we are. And in other words, our sense of self or our capacity to function, it's actually relational. It depends on others. And so when we're dysregulated from the constant pressure and demands around us, we don't just feel bad, we lose access to ourselves, to the world around us, and to other people. And that is not good for us. It's also not good for the greater movement, what we're trying to achieve. So this is really doom and gloom. You probably weren't expecting to come here and be like told all these awful things, but the reason for it's so important to understand this, because if, as a leader, the most important thing to kind of understand is that safety is what expands us. So when the nervous system feels safe, something opens inside of us. So joy, humor, contentment, rest, these allowing yourselves to laugh, this no longer feels like an indulgence. It becomes almost like a physiological requirement or lever to open ourselves. And there's some really cool research that backs this up. I don't want to go in, I'm aware of time, but in our research, if we have a quick look, Cass, the next slide is talking about Barbara Fredrickson's broaden and build theory, and basically some really cool images. I'll go into it deeper one day for you. But basically, when you prime people with negative emotion, they tend to fixate on the central baby. When you track their eye gaze, they just fixate on the center point. And when you prime them with positive or neutral emotions, when they feel safe, they tend to scan the periphery of the display. Now, the cool thing about that is that positive emotion literally opens us. And it doesn't even need to be positive, it could be neutral. So just being not stressed, basically, opens us. And so they asked the question, well, does this also extend to how we think? And they found a very cool thing that in this next experiment, they looked at the question, is A or B more similar to the top image? So what are your thoughts, A or B? Chuck it in the comments. There's no right or wrong here. Kind of depends on your personality, whether you're a detail-minded person. We got some Bs, we got some As. Interesting, we're almost straight across the board. Well, they found that people who were primed with happy, funny videos that they just watched were much more likely to pick, guess which one? They were much more likely to pick A, the big picture global connection. So A at the big picture looks more like the top one, but B at the detailed level looks more like the top one. Interesting. So they thought, well, actually positive emotions seem to even prime us to see the bigger picture psychologically. Super cool, hey? So this is not soft science. This is neurological basis of strategic thinking. It means that a leader who's chronically stressed is not just unhappy, but is sort of potentially also a bit narrowed in the way that they're thinking. So a great way to, I found this photo the other day. I don't know if anyone's seen it. It's a kind of a good way to explain this, but if you don't have perspective, it kind of looks like this house is on fire. Would you be fair to say? But don't be worried. It's actually just a sunset reflecting into the glass. Crazy, right? So if you expand it out into the big picture, you would actually see behind the person taking the photo is a beautiful sunset. So this is a pretty good explanation of what our brains are doing under stress. All right, so here's what I really want you to take from this, that regulated leaders, they don't just think more broadly, they're actually more socially permeable as well. And what I mean by that is that when you're regulated, you can receive people. Have you ever noticed that when you feel kind of like calm, you feel more open? I definitely do. You can take in a team member who's struggling. You can hold space for, climate grief. You don't have to go straight into defensiveness or problem solving. You can, most importantly, probably the most important thing is you can hear feedback. You receive feedback without it destabilizing you. So regulation makes a leader available. So this is where it connects with us. So the chain goes like this to finish off. We start with a regulated leader, then we move into that person creating a safe, psychologically safe team. That then creates in itself bigger picture, more socially permeable people who are making big picture creative decisions, which most importantly has a much more powerful output and impact in the world. So I hope I've made a really strong case here for the fact that self-care, particularly 100%, 100,000%, because in this area in particular, in this sector, is not indulgence. It's a leadership necessity. It's infrastructure for you. So what does it actually look like? Well, it just kind of looks like this. It looks like having chats. It looks like making time to connect with people that you care about, getting into nature. As we know, there's so much research about actually reconnecting to, what it is that we actually are fighting for. My partner, whenever I'm on my computer watching Netflix, feeling guilty, he's like, "I'm so proud of you, Emily." Like when I'm literally, he never says that when I've just run a workshop or done something awesome. He's only ever proud of me when I'm sitting on Netflixing. So I think that's pretty awesome. So when we do that, we open, and when we open, connection becomes possible. So coming back to the Ubuntu idea, we don't regulate in isolation, we regulate in relationship. So I want to share with you my final this is it. If this is all you take from today, then this is it. Pausing, which we did just at the beginning in our mindful check-in, pausing throughout your day breaks the stress cycle. Then regulation, doing things that help you to regulate, opens us. Then community. It makes us also more socially permeable. We want to connect with people more. And this community is the key. Connection expands us and brings hope back to the mission. Connection and community is what makes this whole thing feel possible. So that's the path from the inner to the outer world. So that's how I believe leaders can have impact. That's how I think we turn this ship around, not by having more willpower, not by caring more, but by coming back to ourselves again and again so we can show up for everything and everyone that matters. So thank you so much, everyone. I am very mindful that it is on 12:45, Cass, so I did a terrible job at getting through that. Allocated time.
If everybody is okay with us just going ever so slightly over, I might just go. I've just got a couple of tools that I'd love to share with you. So I think firstly, it's really important to acknowledge that these tools really sit alongside fundamentals. So clear and accessible policies, well-defined work plans, and regular feedback from your managers are essential. They help to reduce confusion, manage workload, and create a sense of fairness and support at work. But what I've learned in the work that I've been doing with Emily and from my previous experience is that there are a couple of small sort of behaviors that you can integrate into your day that from the outside look like they wouldn't do much, but I can assure you that they have a massive impact. And I just feel so seen and validated by what Emily just said, because basically it's the science backed argument for why these things actually work. So I just want to give you three things that I do at work, which have made a massive difference to my experience. So the first one is celebrating small wins. So when a close colleague and we sit next to each other at our desks, when we complete a task, whether it's big or small, we acknowledge it. We high five, we sing a little song, sometimes we dance. It might sound simple or even a bit silly, but these moments actually build recognition and energy and connection. And I trot out of work at the end of the day after doing something like that, feeling good and that I want to come back. So can't be underestimated. The second thing is we all have a rule that we take a collective lunch break. So as a team, we pause each day, we sit together around the dining table, and we genuinely rest. We talk to each other about our weekends. We sort of have creative conversations about whatever. But basically, what that does is it shows us, it models, we are modeling for ourselves and each other that these behaviors, this rest, having time out, caring for our bodies is actually really important. And the third and final one is creating clear boundaries at the end of the workday, because I'm horrible at that. I'm so driven in my, spreadsheets and multitasking to get things done that I find it really difficult to down tools at the end of the day and walk away. And so something that I've started doing is I've joined a local gym, and I have a time that I have an appointment to go and do my gym work. And so I change into my clothes at work. And I have found that since doing that, other people at work are doing the same thing. And so it signals to me the end of the day. And then I draw a line and I go and I do the exercise, which I wouldn't otherwise do either. So it's like a twofer. So those are some small interventions. We've got a bunch of other interventions that we would love to be able to share with you. So I just want to hand over to Em if you want to just give the really quick last call to action.
Great. So obviously we had 45 minutes today, and often I get annoyed and frustrated when people just say you need to take care of yourself. It's like, no, but we need to really understand why. We need to understand deeply in our bones why this, has such, it's so important. And so I hope we got that across today in a very short period of time. If you're wanting some support around climate grief, I created a climate courage podcast. It's 10 episodes. Season 2 is coming soon. It is a 10-day mindfulness course to help you work through the grief, the challenges, and all the things that come with doing this work. So that is free. There's a little QR code there if you want to go to that, but you can also just search for Climate Courage Podcast. We also have, from more of an organisational point of view, we also have Climate Courage for Teams YouTube series. So this is looking at psychosocial hazards in the workplace. This is really relevant if you manage teams, or actually we had someone come to us recently who realised that their organisation wasn't doing any of these things, and was kind of quite empowering for her to kind of know what her rights were around psychosocial risk. So this is another free resource for you. So today is a little bit of a dip in the water. These are resources. And then finally, at its core, our program, if you're interested, is a 6-week program that helps organisations pause, reflect, and rebuild together. We combine all the science-based tools for stress regulation, all the work that I do for corporates. We're bringing it to you. Leadership strategies to reduce burnout, strengthen culture. We have those 3 pillars: individual resilience, team connection, and leadership practices. It's very practical. We really just workshop with you literal things you can do today, this week, this month. At its core, it's guided by this idea that wellbeing is not optional, it's mission critical. If you're interested in what we're doing at Climate Courage for Teams, you can jump on our website. I think it's there, yes. What we're really excited about is Cass and I have found an hour a week where we're both available. You can actually book in for a sounding board chat And this is just something we wanted to offer. You can also, so in that chat, you can just share what's happening in your organization. You don't have to feel pressured to then go on to work with us, but we might be able to unpack some things and work out if we can support you in a deeper way, and if our program might fit you, your organization. You can also head to the website and download our program guide if you want something to take to top management to try and encourage them to get some support into your organization. So basically, we just am so inspired by the work that you're all doing. We want to support you. We're here. Please use us. And thank you so much for being here today. And you can definitely feel free to follow us on LinkedIn, because we'll be sharing we'll be doing, hopefully every quarter, we'll be running these free workshops on a different theme. I think next time we might be looking at team connections. So thank you so much for being here, everyone. I'm aware of the time. Anything else to add, Cass, before we head off?
No, you did an awesome job. Thanks, Emily. And just really appreciate everybody coming today. And yeah, just check out the links that I put in the chat. And we hope to hear from you again soon and see you next time when we do another LinkedIn Live.